Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're jumping into a really powerful idea, how achieving, these truly remarkable results almost always comes from mastering tiny changes. You're going to be unpacking the core insights from James Clear's Atomic Habits.
Yeah, and our mission today is really to cut through all the usual motivational fluff. We want to get into the actual mechanics of transformation. We're going to show you the surprising math behind getting just 1% better every day. And maybe most importantly, why focusing on your systems, not your goals, is really the only way to make progress stick.
Let's start right there with the title itself, Atomic Habits. It suggests something, well, small, but also explosive.
That's it exactly. The word atomic is perfect because it has this dual meaning. First, yeah, it means something incredibly small, like a single irreducible unit of a bigger system.
The building block.
The building block. But second, it also implies, a source of immense power, an atomic reaction.
Small and powerful. That's a great concept for a deep dive like this. One focus on, efficient self-improvement.
Absolutely. And the habit part is just the routine, the thing you do automatically. So an atomic habit is that tiny routine practice that becomes the fundamental building block for monumental change.
Okay, so to make this idea less abstract, there is a fantastic real-world story that just brings it to life. The story of British cycling. For decades, they were the definition of athletic failure on the world stage.
I think mediocre would be kind. I mean, their record was just abysmal. From 1908 all the way to 2003, they won a single Olympic gold medal. Just one.
Wow.
And in the Tour de France, they'd gone 110 years without a single British winner. They were so bad, actually, that a major bike manufacturer refused to sell them equipment.
Refused?
Yeah, they were afraid that being associated with the team would actually hurt their brand.
That is a rough place to start.
Yeah.
So in 2003, British Cycling hires Dave Brailsford as the new performance director.
Sure.
And he brings in this new idea, the aggregation of marginal gains.
It sounds complicated, but the theory was simple. He said, let's identify everything that goes into riding a bike, and then just improve each little piece by 1%. Brailsford was convinced that all those tiny gains, when you added them all up, would create this huge, disproportionate result.
And the level of detail they went into to find that 1% gain, that's what makes this story so incredible. It wasn't just about the bikes.
Oh, no. It became a total obsession with systems. They started with the obvious things, of course.
Yeah.
Redesigning bike seats for more comfort, rubbing alcohol on the tires for better grip, things like that.
Sure, the logical stuff.
But then they started digging into these variables that you would think have nothing to do with performance on a bike. And that's where it gets really interesting.
Like what?
They optimized sleep. I mean, they brought in specific pillows and mattresses for each individual rider to make sure they got the best possible recovery. They even hired a surgeon.
A surgeon.
Yeah, but not for injuries.
Yeah.
He was there to teach the riders the most effective way to wash their hands.
To wash their hands. You're kidding.
Just to reduce the chance of catching a cold, that's the level of commitment we're talking about.
That is insane.
They even painted the inside of the team's maintenance truck pure white.
Why?
So they could spot any tiny speck of dust that might get into the finely tuned bike mechanics.
Painting a truck white to spot dust, that just proves no detail is too small if it's part of the bigger system.
And the results, they weren't just good, they completely changed the sport. 5 years later, at the 2008 Beijing Olympics, British cycling won a staggering 60% of all the available gold medals.
60%.
Yeah.
And what about that historic curse in the Tour de France?
Broken. Bradley Wiggins won in 2012, then Chris Froome won 4 of the next 5.
Which just demonstrates the incredible math of compounding, right?
That's it, exactly. When we talk about getting 1% better every day for a year, people think, okay, 365% better.
Right, simple addition.
But because that improvement compounds, it multiplies on itself every single day, you actually end up 37.78 times better by the end of the year.
Whoa, wait, almost 38 times better from just a tiny daily effort.
38 times. And the flip side is just as powerful, but terrifying. If you get 1% worse every day for a year, you basically decline to 0.
It's that slight difference in trajectory, but when you repeat it over and over, it completely changes where you end up.
It's just like compound interest for your life. The book uses this great analogy of a plane flying from LA to New York. If the pilot adjusts the heading just 3.5 degrees south at takeoff, you don't feel it. It's nothing.
It's imperceptible.
Right. But by the time you've flown across the country, that tiny shift means you land in Washington, D.C. instead of New York.
So the takeaway for you, listening, is that your outcomes in life are always a lagging measure of your habits. Your health is a lagging measure of your eating and exercise habits. Your knowledge is a lagging measure of your learning habits. You get what you repeat.
That brings us to the biggest problem most of us face. Why do we quit? We start a new habit, we're doing all the right things, but we just don't see results right away.
So we give up.
We give up. I think we're all wired to expect progress to be linear, a straight line going up. I put in X amount of effort, I should see Y result immediately.
And when we don't, we hit what the book calls the valley of disappointment.
Exactly. Progress isn't linear. It often follows this kind of hockey stick curve. For weeks, maybe even months, you feel like nothing is happening. You feel stuck. And that's the plateau of latent potential. People quit right before the big breakthrough.
So you're saying that feeling of failure
Mhm.
is actually a sign that you're on the right track.
In a way, yes. The work isn't being wasted, it's being stored. Think about the classic ice cube analogy. If you have an ice cube in a room at 25 degrees and you slowly heat the room, 26, 27, 28, nothing
It's
happens.
still a block of ice.
Right, 31 degrees, still ice. But that 1 degree jump from 31 to 32 degrees, it melts instantly.
That one final degree unlocked all the stored energy from the 7 degrees before it.
That's it. And there's this fantastic quote the author uses, the one about the stone cutter.
Oh, I know this one, the Jacob Riis quote. The San Antonio Spurs used to have it in their locker room.
That's the one. It goes something like, when nothing seems to help, I go and look at a stone cutter hammering away at his rock maybe 100 times without a single crack showing. Yet at the 101st blow, it will split in two, and I know it was not that last blow that did it, but all that had gone before.
It's a perfect illustration. Mastery requires patience.
Yeah.
You have to just keep hammering long enough to break through that plateau.
And that persistence gets a lot easier if you make one huge mental shift. Forget about your goals and focus completely on your systems.
Okay, wait. Telling someone to ignore their goals,
Mm-hmm.
that sounds pretty counterintuitive. If I don't set a goal, like, say, running a marathon, how do I know what system to even build?
It's a fair question, but the distinction is so important. Goals are about the results you want. Systems are about the processes that lead to those results. And the argument is that if you totally ignored your goal and just focus on running your system perfectly every day, you'd still get the result.
So the goal gives you a direction, like a compass point, but the system is what actually moves you forward.
Exactly. And a goals-only mindset is a problem for a few reasons. First, there's what's called survivorship bias. Winners and losers often have the exact same goals. Every single Olympian wants a gold medal.
Right.
What separates them isn't the goal. It's the system of continuous small improvements they follow every day.
So the path you take is more important than the destination marker.
Second, achieving a goal it's just a momentary change. You clean your messy room, great. But if you don't change the sloppy habits that made it messy,
It'll be messy again next week.
you've solved a symptom, not the cause. Fix the inputs, the system, and the outputs take care of themselves.
That makes sense.
Third, goals actually restrict happiness. We tell ourselves, once I get that promotion, then I'll be happy. But with a systems-first mindset, you can get satisfaction anytime your process is running, when you show up, when you do the work.
You're shifting happiness from some future destination to something you can have right now.
And finally, goals can work against long-term progress. Think of the yo-yo effect. A runner trains like crazy for a marathon, they cross the finish line.
And they stop running for 2 months.
Exactly, because the motivation, the goal is gone. The purpose of a system is to keep playing the game, to just keep improving forever.
Well, the core idea here is
Yeah.
you do not rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your systems.
And if the system is what really matters, we have to talk about the deepest layer that system is built on, and that's identity.
The book visualizes this as like an onion, right? 3 layers. The outer layer is your outcomes, the results. The middle layer is your processes, your habits. And the core, the very center, is your identity, your beliefs about who you are.
Right, and most people start on the outside and try to work their way in, but the most powerful approach is identity-based habits. You flip it around. You start by focusing on who you wish to become.
Because if a behavior doesn't align with your self-image, it just won't last.
It won't. This is why the person who says, I'm trying to quit smoking, usually fails. Their identity is still a smoker who is struggling.
But the person who says, no thanks, I'm not a smoker, has already made the identity shift. The refusal is just. It's automatic. It's who they are now.
It's a belief change, not just a behavior change. And your identity isn't fixed. It's built from your actions. The word identity actually comes from the Latin for repeated beingness.
Repeated beingness. So your identity is just the evidence you've collected about yourself.
That's all it is. Every single action you take is like a vote for the type of person you want to become. You don't need to be perfect, you just need a majority of the votes. Every time you choose a salad over fries, you cast a vote for being a healthy person. Every time you write one page, you cast a vote for being a writer.
So the two-step process is pretty simple then. 1, decide the kind of person you want to be. And 2, prove it to yourself with small wins.
And to do that, we need to understand the actual mechanism of how habits form in the brain. At their core, they're just mental shortcuts.
The brain is always trying to automate things, right, to save energy. And that automation follows a really fast neurological loop.
The habit loop. 4 steps. First is the cue. That's the trigger seeing your running shoes by the door. Second is the craving. That's the motivation, the desire to change your internal state. You don't crave the cigarette, you crave the feeling of relief it provides.
Okay, cue, craving,
Yeah.
then what?
Third is the response. That's the actual habit you perform. And fourth is the reward. That's what satisfies the craving and tells your brain, hey, that worked. Let's remember that for next time.
And this loop is the foundation for that really practical framework from the book, the 4 laws of behavior change. To build a good habit, 1, make it obvious. 2, make it attractive. 3, make it easy. And 4, make it satisfying.
And we can apply these. Let's take the third law because it's so important. Make it easy. This is where the 2-minute rule comes in.
The 2-minute rule. Okay, what's that?
It just states that when you start a new habit, it should take less than 2 minutes to do. The goal isn't to master the habit right away, it's to master the act of showing up.
So if my goal is read more, the 2-minute version isn't read a chapter.
No, the 2-minute version is read 1 page. Or even open the book. Go for a run becomes put on my running shoes. You make the starting ritual so easy you can't say no.
So you're lowering the barrier to entry to almost 0. Once your shoes are on, you're much more likely to actually go for the run.
You're leveraging human inertia instead of fighting it. And the inversion of these laws is how you break bad habits. Make it invisible, unattractive, difficult, and unsatisfying.
If you want to stop mindlessly scrolling on your phone, don't rely on willpower. Make it invisible. Leave it in another room.
Exactly. You're just altering your environment to align with your goals.
We've covered a ton of ground here, from British cycling's obsession with dust to the neurology of our own brains. If we pull it all together, what's the single biggest takeaway?
I think it's this. The systems and the tiny changes are great for getting better results, that's true. But the real reason habits matter so much is because they are constantly changing your fundamental beliefs about yourself. They are literally shaping your identity, one action at a time.
And we know the author himself lived this. Recovering from that horrific baseball bat injury, the medically induced coma, he had to slowly rebuild his life and his business through this long series of tiny, consistent breakthroughs that reinforced a new identity for himself.
Progress isn't linear. It never is. But it is inevitable if you just keep editing your beliefs and casting those small, consistent votes for who you want to be.
So we'll leave you with this final thought to chew on. If your identity isn't fixed in stone, what tiny, consistent vote, that single 1% improvement, can you cast today to reinforce the identity you're striving for? Where can you make a habit just a little more obvious, attractive, easy, or satisfying to prove to yourself who you are in the process of becoming?